On the move, Iowa's 4th District Congressman Tom Latham is moving from Ames to a residence that'll be in the newly drawn 3rd Congressional District. And with that move, in order to be re-elected, he'll have to defeat Democratic incumbent Leonard Boswell. A conversation with Republican Congressman Tom Latham on this edition of Iowa Press.
Funding for Iowa Press was provided by Friends, the Iowa Public Television Foundation, Iowa Bankers Association. Iowa banks provide financial services to meet the needs of families, farms, and businesses. More information is available online at myiowabank.com. Iowa Banks, your future, our focus. The Associated General Contractors of Iowa, the public's partner in building Iowa's highway, bridge, and municipal utility infrastructure. Iowa Community Foundations, an initiative of the Iowa Council of Foundations, connecting donors to the causes and communities they care about, for good, for Iowa, forever. Details at iowacommunityfoundations.org. Iowa's private colleges and universities, enrolling 25% of total Iowa higher education enrollment, and conferring 44% of the baccalaureate and 40% of the graduate degrees in the state. More information is available at www.thinkindependently.com.
Iowa's hospitals provide jobs to 74,000 Iowans and have a $6.1 billion impact to the state's economy. Read more at www.ihaonline.org. The Iowa Hospital Association. We care about Iowa's health.
For decades, Iowa Press has brought you politicians and newsmakers from across Iowa and beyond. Now celebrating 40 years of broadcast excellence on statewide Iowa Public Television. This is the Friday, May 6th edition of Iowa Press. Here is Dean Borg.
Iowa now has 5 U.S. congressional districts, but starting with the November 2012 election, that's trimmed to 4. It's a consequence of last year's federal census showing more population in other states, and because we're expecting all 5 incumbent representatives to be seeking re-election, one of them won't be returning to the new Congress. Now here's how we get from 5 to 4. We're looking at the congressional map for the past 10 years and the newly drawn districts for the coming decade. Today we're focusing on the 3rd Congressional District because that's where it appears 2 incumbents will be clashing. You'll recall that the 3rd District's incumbent congressman, that's Democrat Leonard Boswell, was our Iowa Press guest last weekend. Well, this week we're talking with Republican Tom Latham, now representing the 4th District, intending to move to the 3rd District to challenge Boswell. Latham's now in his 17th year representing Iowa in the U.S. House of Representatives. Congressman Latham, welcome back to Iowa Press.
Thanks, Dean. It's great to be with you.
This is a high-stakes musical chairs. High-stakes musical chairs. I used to play it as a kid, but Congressman, I never have seen this happen before, and I guess that we'll see what happens.
Right. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I currently represent 3 of the 16 counties in the new district, and it's very familiar territory. It's a district that I look forward to, and I think I fit very well with the new district.
We're going to be talking about that as we introduce our questioners today. Associated Press senior political writer Mike Glover and Radio Iowa News Director Kay Henderson.
Congressman, let's talk about some of the logistics of that move. You have said you intend to move from the current residence in Ames into the 3rd District. Where are you moving and when are you moving?
Well, I wish I knew that exactly. My wife is currently looking around a little bit in the area, and we haven't decided yet exactly where we'll have our residence here, but having 3 of the counties with Dallas and Madison and Warren currently in that district, obviously it's a good fit for us, and I look forward to moving down.
And let's talk a little bit more about that move, and let's talk about the why of it. When this race emerges and you move, it'll feature 2 congressmen, both of whom have moved into the district.
Right.
Why move? Is your loyalty not to the district? Is your loyalty just to Congress? Why move?
Well, I've always represented Iowans in Congress. Lines haven't made a difference in the past, and they don't today. As a member of the Appropriations Committee and chairman of the subcommittee there, I've worked with all Iowans, whether it be in the Des Moines Partnership, whether it be rural interest, all of those things. So I just feel very good about being in this district. It's a good fit for me, and I'm looking forward to it.
Is this the most competitive congressional race you may face in your 9, now 10 elections?
It may be. I don't know. This district, actually, if you look at registration, is much better than the district that I had 10 years ago as far as Democrat-Republican registration. And I think it's a really good fit, again, because I've worked with the communities. I know what the issues are here.
Well, explain why you think you're a good fit for this district. It's basically the southwest quadrant of the state, 16 counties. Why are you a good fit for that district, rather than someone who's represented many of those counties before in Congressman Boswell?
Well, with my experience in Congress, for one thing, but also, more importantly, my background as a farmer, a small business person, a father, a grandfather. I have grandchildren in this congressional district. It is something that is close to me, and it's something that I think I fit it because having worked with the community in central Iowa over the years on the Appropriations Committee and a lot of the issues there, having a rural background coming from Alexander, originally a town of 165 people, I understand rural and the urban areas.
Well, let me expand on that question just a little bit more. A tactic in politics is define your opponent and before he has a chance to define himself. I'm going to give you an opportunity right now to define yourself before you can be defined, although you're pretty well known here in Iowa. What, in addition to what you just told Kay and answered her question, what do people in this new district need to know about your political philosophy and about you, Tom Latham?
Okay. Well, Dean, I think the most important thing you can do in this job, and that I've learned over the years, is to listen to people. And I spend hours every day with folks in my office in Washington or in the district listening. And that way you can, this is a representational form of government we have. And that is the best way for the member of Congress that represents you to be able to go to Washington, represent the interests there. I think with my background as far as small business, as in farming, that it really is a good fit.
How would you define yourself, though, philosophically, politically? Where do you...
I'm a conservative, fiscal conservative, one who believes that the federal government has been irresponsible as far as the spending that's been going on, that we've got to put a stop to that. And I've been in a position on appropriations to actually cut spending rather than to keep on with this irresponsible spending that's been going on.
And one of the things you just told us what voters should know about you, one of the things that happens during a campaign is you tell voters about the person you're running against. What do voters in this new district need to know about Leonard Boswell, and how are you going to go about telling them that?
Well, first of all, Leonard Boswell's a friend of mine. And I went to him, I said, Leonard, I hope we never have this conversation, but I'm going to be moving to the 3rd district,
right,
where, 3 counties.
And how do you respond?
Well, how do we define, I admire, his service in the military. He's been a long-term public service. I respect that. But we're very, very different. He has voted for the stimulus package, $787 billion. He voted for Obamacare, which is causing so much difficulty as far as job creation, as far as the new taxes involved with that. Voted for cap and trade, something that would increase the cost of our utility bills about 20 to 25%. The gas prices, and it's high enough at the pump today, but that would add another 50 cents a gallon. I oppose those things. We have a very different idea about the size, scope, spending going on in Washington. I think that we've got to cut it. We've got to make sure that the private sector is empowered rather than the federal government.
And as you mentioned, this is a pretty competitive district. Voter registration is pretty evenly divided. Right. It's got 2 incumbents in it. I presume this is going to be one of the most competitive congressional races in the country and one of the most expensive. You're close to Speaker Boehner. How much is this race going to cost?
I don't know at this point.
You've already got $1 million in the bank.
Well, we're very appreciative of the wide support that we have. But I don't expect anything special from anyone. I'm going to work extremely hard. We're going to have the resources available so that we can be competitive, that we can respond to charges that I know will be coming. It's already happening. There's some of the operatives out there doing robocalls and all those type of negative stuff that I think, you know, the election's 18 months away. Let's talk about issues rather than all this negative stuff.
Traditionally, expensive campaigns are ugly. How ugly is this thing going to get?
I hope it isn't. I have a reputation of running positive campaigns about talking about the issues that are so important to you know, the Iowans today, as far as the economy, as far as creating jobs, as far as the security for our seniors, as far as Social Security and Medicare, things like that. I'm going to run a positive campaign. Now, I'm sure that there will be outside people doing negative things, but I have to be in a position to be able to respond to those negative attacks.
Did you decide that Congressman King is better able to represent that new district than you would be?
I just didn't see any reason for two Republicans to go against each other and basically use up resources there. I think that we have a similar view as far as the federal government, that we've got to cut spending and why use our resources against each other, when in fact the important thing for the American people and certainly for Iowans is to get a handle on the massive debt that we have and deficits in Washington.
The dominant political story in America for the past 5 or 6 or 7 days has been the death of Osama bin Laden. Do you support the president's decision not to release a photo of bin Laden or to release the video of the raid itself?
Well, first of all, let's remember the families that died on 9/11, and it breaks my heart. I still think of that day with the clear sky when that plane went into the Pentagon. Where I stay in Washington, it actually shook our house that day when it hit. So it's very real to me, and we've got to remember those families, and also to congratulate the men and women in uniform and our intelligent officials and the president for making decisive action and taking him out. And certainly President Bush has got to be commended also, I think, as far as getting us to this point. As far as the photographs and video, you know, it's a tough call, but I honestly think that for culture, for a lot of people, that it is very, very important that people see Osama bin Laden dead. And if people say, well, it's going to be gory and all that, well, they've released all the other pictures that are out there. Why not have the American people know for sure what happened? And really, transparency is very good.
The president has said it would be akin to spiking the football, and that it might endanger the troops. Do you disagree with those two assessments?
If they could give me credible evidence that it would endanger anybody, yes, I could accept that. And it's a close call. It really is.
You also said that President Bush deserves credit. There
Sure.
are some Republicans who say President Obama hasn't given President Bush adequate credit. Are you among those Republicans?
I was pleased in his statement that he recognized President Bush, whether he gets the full credit. Certainly they've had differences as far as interrogation procedures, things like that. But President Bush does not want to be in the limelight. He's no longer president. He understands that. And I think the American people understand that he is responsible for a lot of the intelligence.
Most polls have shown President Obama got a bit of a spike from this, and some of them he got a double-digit spike.
Right.
How long will that last, and what's the political fallout from this?
Well, I don't know how long it'll last. I think when this election comes up next time, and that's the important poll at that time, it's going to be about the size and scope of the federal government, the $14.5 trillion national debt, $1.65 trillion annual deficits that he continues, the lack of jobs. We just had a jobs report today that unemployment's gone back up again. You know, that's going to be the issue, I think, in the next election.
One of the key criticisms a lot of Republicans have had of Democrats in general, and President Obama in particular, is that they're weak on foreign policy. They don't know how to exercise America's power around the world. Has he answered that question?
I think it would be very difficult, or much more difficult, to make an argument, and he's basically continued the policies of President Bush. When you look at Iraq, when you look at Afghanistan, and following through as far as with Osama bin Laden. So it's basically a continuation. I think it'd be difficult to not give him credentials as far as national security.